All right, so are you ready to dive into a world of fairies and romance and maybe just a little bit of controversy?
Mm.
You ready to explore a court of thorns and roses?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating series, and I think it's really cool how Sarah J. Maas has taken that classic Beauty and the Beast kind of framework
Yeah.
and woven in all this like fairy lore and created something that feels really familiar but also surprisingly unique
Yeah,
at the same time.
for sure. And we've got kind of a lot to cover. So we've got, Wikipedia, we've got a whole stack of Goodreads reviews, and even a professional book review to
Right.
kind of guide us through this.
Yeah.
So consider this your crash course in ACOTAR.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect if you're thinking of picking it up or just curious about what all the hype is.
Exactly. And we've got about 10 minutes to cover it all.
Yeah.
So let's get started.
All right, so quick recap for anybody who needs it.
Yeah.
Feyre,
Yeah.
our heroine, ends up in Prythian, which is this magical land that's ruled by these high lords,
Mm.
which are like, powerful fairies with some serious territorial issues.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
She's initially taken captive by Tamlin of the Spring Court.
Right.
And that's kind of where that whole Beauty and the Beast vibe that we were talking about kicks in.
Exactly. Yeah. But here's where it gets really interesting. I think Prythian isn't just like one fairy tale forest.
Wow.
It's divided into 7 courts,
Oh, wow.
each reflecting the High Lord's like personality and powers.
Okay.
So we've got spring, summer, autumn, winter, and then even dawn, day, and night courts.
Whoa, a night court.
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It's pretty intense.
Oh, yeah.
And each of them has this very distinct feel and set of rules, and that's what makes it so interesting, I think.
That is interesting. And you said that they kind of reflect the High Lords.
Yeah.
I was reading one review that was describing the Spring Court as like lush and vibrant,
Mm-hmm.
but also hinted that there was kind of a darker side to it, just like Tamlin.
Oh, yeah.
You know, kind of like how those picture-perfect Instagram couples always have like the messiest breakups.
Oh, for sure, totally. And I think those complexities are really what draw readers in.
Yeah.
We see that in the Goodreads reviews too. It's not all just like gushing praise.
Oh, really?
There's some really strong opinions in there.
Okay, spill the tea.
Right.
What are people saying?
Well, the series has a 4.18-star average rating on Goodreads, which is pretty impressive.
Oh.
A lot of people say it's like the best Beauty and the Beast reimagining they've ever read, but
Okay.
there are definitely some criticisms in there too,
Mm-hmm.
especially about Feyre's decision-making and some of the relationship dynamics.
Right.
Some people found certain characters like Tamlin and Rhysand to be like straight up problematic.
Hold on, back up a second.
Yeah.
Problematic
Yeah.
and toxic
Yeah.
in a fantasy romance.
Right.
That's not usually in the marketing blurb.
No, not usually. And I think that's where Maas's skill as a writer really comes in,
Yeah.
because she doesn't shy away from writing those more morally gray characters. Rhysand in particular is kind of this like love him or hate him character for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some readers are completely obsessed and others think he's like downright manipulative.
That whole like dangerous allure trope can be
Right.
really tricky to pull off.
Yeah, it can be, for sure. I'm seeing a pattern here, though.
Yeah.
Complex characters,
Uh-huh.
controversial relationships.
Yeah.
Is there anything about this series that hasn't like sparked debate
Right.
online?
It does seem like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the whole issue of censorship.
Oh, right.
A Court of Mist and Fury, the second book, landed on the American Library Association's list of most challenged books in 2022,
Oh, wow.
mainly for its depiction of sex acts. And it was actually flagged by an AI system designed to identify books for potential banning in Iowa.
Wow. AI book banning.
I know, it's crazy.
That feels like something straight out of like a dystopian novel.
Totally.
Okay, so this series definitely pushes some boundaries.
Mhm.
But what about the actual like fantasy element?
Right.
I mean, we've got these 7 courts, we've got these high lords with these like unique powers.
Yeah.
What makes the magic system in this world stand out?
That's a great question, and I think that's something that we should definitely dive into. So the magic system in ACOTAR is really interesting because it's deeply intertwined with Feyre's journey.
Okay.
You know, she starts as a human with no magical abilities, but as the series progresses, she discovers that she's something called a high fae.
Hi, Faye.
Yeah, and her powers begin to manifest.
Okay, so is that like she's a super powerful fairy, she's destined to rule or something?
Not quite. I mean, her powers are tied to Prythian itself, to like the land and its ancient magic.
Yeah.
And they're not just about like brute force. You know, Feyre's abilities are more about things like healing and manipulating energy and even influencing emotions.
Oh, yeah?
It's less about conquering and more about connection, which I
Mm-hmm.
think plays a huge role in how she navigates this world that can be really dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I remember one reviewer mentioned that Feyre's power comes from like forging alliances and breaking curses. So
Yes.
it's not just about wielding magic, it's about understanding it.
Absolutely. And that's what makes her such a compelling heroine. She's not just a warrior. She's a strategist. She's a diplomat. And ultimately, she's a force for change in Prythian.
Mm.
She challenges the existing power dynamics. And that's partly why I think the series resonates so strongly with readers.
And you mentioned earlier that this series is about more than just like falling in love.
Right.
And I'm starting to see that it sounds like it's about, a woman discovering her own strength
Yeah.
in a world where women are often seen as,
Mm.
well, prizes to be won.
Exactly. And that's where the Beauty and the Beast parallel kind of gets flipped on its head.
Okay.
Feyre isn't just waiting to be rescued. She's actively shaping her own destiny, even if it means making difficult choices,
Right.
some of which readers find very controversial.
Speaking of controversial choices, let's circle back to those problematic characters.
Oh, yeah.
We know some readers find Tamlin and Rhysand a bit, well, less than ideal love interests.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about them that kind of rubs people the wrong way?
Well, with Tamlin, it's kind of a classic case of not all that glitters is gold.
Right.
He seems charming and protective at first,
Yeah.
but there's this undercurrent of control that becomes more apparent as the series goes on.
Mm.
Some reviewers have even compared him to Gaston
Oh, why
from
not?
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Initially appealing, but ultimately possessive and manipulative.
Okay. And Rhysand, he's the one who gets compared to Hades, right?
Yes.
What's his deal?
Rhysand. He's a character that's shrouded in mystery and ambiguity.
Oh,
He's got that bad boy vibe that a lot of readers find irresistible.
yeah.
But there are also these hints of darkness, even cruelty.
Mm.
He's definitely not your typical Prince Charming. And some readers find his behavior borderline abusive, but he also plays a pivotal role in Feyre's journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And their relationship is one of the most talked about aspects of the entire series.
So it's like you can't deny the chemistry,
Right.
but you also have to question his motives.
Exactly.
It sounds like Maas has created these characters that are just so multifaceted and flawed,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess is what makes them so fascinating, even if they're not always likable.
Precisely. And that's what makes these books more than just fluffy romances. They spark debate, they challenge our perceptions,
Yeah.
and they force us to confront some uncomfortable truths about power and love and the choices that we make.
Okay, so we've got this unique magic system. We've got strong female characters. We've got morally ambiguous love interests and a healthy dose of controversy.
Right.
No wonder people are obsessed with these books.
Exactly.
But before we wrap up, I have to ask about that scrapped Hulu adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
Any theories on why it fell through?
Unfortunately, the sources we have don't really give any specific reasons.
Okay.
It's possible that the creators and the network had different visions for the show.
Right.
Or maybe the timing just wasn't right.
Yeah.
It's a shame, though. Imagine seeing those lush descriptions of the spring court and the shadowy intrigue of the night court all brought to life on screen.
I know, I'm already picturing the costumes, the special effects.
Right.
Maybe another network will pick it up someday.
I hope so.
But for now, we'll just have to settle for letting our imaginations run wild with the books.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that we create in our own minds.
Well said. So we covered a lot, in our whirlwind 10 minutes here.
Yeah, I did.
I want to make sure we give our listener something to really chew on.
Yeah?
What's that one nugget of insight about a court of thorns and roses that'll stick with them?
That's a good question.
After listening to this deep dive.
Yeah, I think for me it comes back to those Goodreads reviews,
Okay.
Yes, there's all this debate about the romance, and sure, some of the characters make questionable choices. But what really struck me was how many reviewers talked about the series' impact on them.
Oh, interesting.
It's more than just escapism.
Yeah, I mean, like how it sparked their own creativity.
Mm,
I remember one reviewer even wrote a rap song
right.
about
Yeah.
Feyre.
Exactly. And others mention how the series helped them process their own experiences with trauma and healing. The books tackle some really dark themes.
Yeah.
But they always offer this glimmer of hope, this
Right.
reminder that you can overcome adversity and find your own power.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And it speaks to why this series has become such a phenomenon.
Right.
It goes beyond the typical fantasy romance tropes. It delves into something deeper, something more meaningful.
Precisely, and it all comes back to Feyre's journey.
Yeah.
She starts as this young woman trapped by circumstance,
Right.
but she evolves into this powerful force in Prythian, not through brute strength, but through courage and compassion and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
It's like she embodies that saying.
Yeah,
The most powerful weapon is a kind and intelligent mind.
totally.
She's not just fighting villains. She's fighting for a better world.
Mm-hmm.
A world where women can claim their own power and define their own destinies.
And that's a message that I think resonates really deeply, especially in a world where, women are still fighting for equality and
Yeah.
autonomy.
Yeah.
Feyre's journey is a fantasy, yes, but it taps into this very real desire for empowerment and change.
So if you're looking for a book that will transport you to a magical world, challenge your perspectives, and maybe even inspire you to embrace your own power.
Then A Court of Thorns and Roses might be the perfect escape.
Well said.
Until next time, happy reading.
Until next time.